Alright, so this video is over Succession Season 4, Episode 7. I'm just going to get into it. In the beginning of the episode, I didn't understand the whole Tom saying Rasmussen to Shiv at the beginning. I didn't know if he was calling Shiv Rasmussen. It's apparently a university name, and it's also a common Danish last name. Tom giving the Shiv the Scorpion was pretty cringe and also kind of nonsensical. If you have to tell someone something is funny, or if you have to tell someone something's a joke, then you've definitely failed. Kendall and Reva, as they have been shown to be in past seasons, are super toxic. I understand Kendall's daughter Sophie being freaked out about the election. Donald Trump being elected really freaked me out, for one. And Kendall asking where Reva was whenever Sophie was assaulted on the street, that's pretty fucked up. I think Sophie's probably in her early teenage years, so she should be capable of walking on the street alone. And anyway, where was Kendall? It's pretty ridiculous that he asked that. Kendall's definitely not an involved parent. It's a very Logan thing to do to neglect your kids. Also, Kendall saying he is trying to make the world safe is so hubristic and kind of out of touch. And I did notice that the kids do keep acting more and more like Logan in the wake of his death. They keep on repeating stuff that Logan has said to one another and to other people. I think Connor's kind of the exception to that, but the three main ones definitely are doing that. We've gotten more scenes with all four siblings this season than I think we ever had before. Shiv calling Kendall Waystar Jesus, it's pretty funny, and it's also a nice commentary on Kendall offering people eternal life and everything through Living Plus. I do wish that we got more Connor just in general this season. I feel like he's underutilized, and he's probably my favorite character. I'm a total con head, as I've talked about before. I really hate Roman's haircut this season. It's super annoying, and I really hate how it looks. This season has been super compact. Like, everything is pretty, it's not a big time frame we're working with. We haven't even gotten to the funeral yet. So you would think it hasn't even been a week since Logan died, maybe max a week and a half. And of course, Nate brings up the wine to Tom. That's a pretty nice callback. I'd feel so awkward if I was Nate, though. I probably wouldn't even show up to the tailgate party if I was Nate. Roman asking Connor to drop out is so presumptuous. I'd react pretty much the same way if I was Connor. Connor's sunk a lot of money and time into the election and stuff. Also, the whole Connor and Willa going on honeymoon doesn't seem to have happened. I don't know what's going on with that. Shiv is really, or at least in the beginning of the episode and through the middle of the episode, Shiv is doing an impressive job of playing both sides of the Gojo Waystar deal. She seems to kind of be keeping Matsson in her pocket while also not tipping off Roman and Kendall that she's playing both sides. I did notice that Ebba is obviously super uncomfortable pretty much throughout this episode. And Matsson's super awkward and rude to Ebba. I did like that the Pierce guy comes back, like Connor's little assistant or whatever. I love his kind of partnership with Connor. That's always been one of my favorite. That was always one of my favorite parts of this show is those two bonding. And it's super funny that the Pierce guy calls Connor his liege. It's super it's a callback to feudal times and stuff. I don't think I want to go anywhere without nukes. That makes sense. I mean, countries with nukes are obviously going to be bigger players on the geopolitical sphere. Connor saying he wanted to open up North Korea is also pretty funny and hubristic. Shiv doesn't seem bothered that Matsson wants to fire Tom. You'd think it would bother her now that they're back together, but it doesn't seem to. It really makes you question whether Tom and Shiv reconnecting is actually real or it's just a chess move by Shiv. I could see it being either one. And Shiv trying to convince Matsson to make her top dog. That makes sense that she would do that, but I just can't see it actually happening. Matsson seems very unsure about it, and I think Shiv is being a little overconfident and maybe thinking that she has more pull than she actually does. It's pretty horrifying that everyone is gossiping about Tom getting fired at his own party. You throw a party for people and everyone's just sitting around talking about how you're going to get fired. It's pretty fucked up. I didn't know if the Swedes were vaping weed or nicotine. It is stated that Oscar Matsson's second was on edibles, so it definitely could be weed. I don't necessarily even understand why Ebba was even at the party. I'm not sure. I mean, I get why in terms of like the show's narrative, but if I were her, I just wouldn't show up. I mean, she keeps on following Madsen around, even though they obviously dislike each other. It does make sense that Madsen isn't even a real coder. He doesn't seem like somebody who would be really good at writing code. I mean, he has the kind of social awkwardness and social inept. He's socially inept, which does kind of speak to him maybe being a more of a computer science guy, but I don't know. I didn't find it surprising that Madsen is fudging his subscription numbers. He definitely seems like the type to defraud investors. That was also a plot line for Kendall last episode. So the show does seem to be really focusing on that kind of stuff. Greg does seem to really ingratiate himself with the Swedes. Who doesn't love Greg? I like that part of this episode. The vibe between Roman and Jerry is so completely different than their vibe in the past. It's a lot more adversarial. I don't know. I do kind of like that Jerry is standing up for herself and not being, not letting Roman kind of run all over her. I did question if Jerry is demanding a severance of hundreds of millions of dollars. That definitely would seem excessive. I mean, she seems to be like she's kind of blackmailing Roman, perhaps. I didn't understand that part very well. And Roman, this entire season really seems on edge. Throughout this season, he seems kind of like he's really quick to get angry, really quick to make bad decisions. Madsen calling NYC Second World and a Legoland is super funny. NYC has the reputation of being a cosmopolitan city with, everything you could want in a city is there in New York City, and it's pretty funny that he's shitting on it. I did find Tom freaking out about being fired. That was super relatable. Tom and Shiv blowing up on each other again was very easy to see coming. They're both super volatile. Their relationship is super volatile. And I do think that Tom is definitely indeed a servile person. He kind of gives off the vibe of being like a butler or a servant or something. He's so eager to please. You would think that the guests at the party could hear Tom and Shiv yelling at each other. It wasn't clear if anyone could hear them, but they are kind of screaming at each other, which is pretty intense. I like that scene a lot. It's nice to see them actually being honest with each other, which I've commented on in past episodes. Roman speaking at Logan's funeral. I'm calling it right now. That's such a bad idea. And then I did question where was Mondale this whole time. And I did question if Jerry is actually fired. And if she's actually fired, then what is she doing at the party? And, what will her role in the show be going forward? It's kind of unclear what's going on there. She seems to kind of want to be fired so she can perhaps sue or get a very large severance. And I did question when Shiv will reveal that she's pregnant. So for my predictions for the rest of the season, we're obviously going to get a funeral episode by the end of the season. I could see it being the final episode of the series. For the preview for next week, it doesn't seem like we're going to get a funeral next week, because you would think that a funeral would take up most or all of the episode of a future episode. I do think that Tom and Shiv are probably really actually done now. Them being on and off continuously, it would get annoying, and at a certain point it has to end, so I do think that this is probably the end of their relationship again. I don't know, they both did seem upset at the end, at the very end of the episode, where they're both kind of lying there in bed, angry with each other, so maybe they do reconcile, but I kind of doubt it. There's definitely no way the Gojo Waystar deal is going through now that, the kids know about Madsen fudging his numbers, the kids know about Madsen creeping on Ebba. That's a lot of ammunition for them. There's no way it's going through. I could actually see Kendall and Waystar acquiring Gojo, pulling the Uno reverse card. At this point, that makes a lot more sense than Gojo acquiring Waystar. The reverse Waystar acquiring Gojo would fit in with the show a lot more. I could actually see Connor doing surprisingly well in terms of vote counts in the upcoming election. I do think the show is gearing up for Mencken to win the election, to win the presidency. That would definitely help ATN and maybe even would raise ATN's value. There were some kind of small details in this episode that implied that the Democratic candidate might win, but I think it's going to be Mencken. And like I said earlier, Roman is totally going to fuck up his funeral speech. All right, so that's it. If you could like and subscribe, I'd appreciate it. I'll be back next week and the weeks following for the rest of the episodes, doing a little recap, breakdown, whatever this is. So yeah, like and subscribe. Thanks.